right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. It's episode 92. Christian Brindle, Glenn Shelton, and we are continuing yesterday's episode, preparing for AEP because, let's face it, we didn't get time to finish it. So I want to start off the show by just talking about today marks my 2-week anniversary on my new diet, my new eating habit regimen.
How do you feel? Tell the world.
Tell
the world, how are you feeling?
Prior to it, what I was feeling a lot was a lot of inflammation. You know what I mean? Like, I had a moment sometime in the last couple of months where I wake up in the middle of the night, I had to go to the bathroom, and I was struggling getting out of bed. You know, I'm trying to move.
Your
I'm like,
knees?
just like
whole
my
body.
whole body, like
whole body.
It's like I was stuck, and I was like, "What is happening to me?" It wasn't like I was stuck, like I couldn't move. It was that I was stuck because my body was inflamed and the fat on my body wouldn't let me move. I'm like, "What is happening right now?" And yeah, I mean, so far what I'm noticing
to go to the bathroom 8 or more times per night?
Usually not at all. This was like a rare thing. Usually I'll go the whole night and I don't have to wake up, but
that's good. You should be able to at your age.
Yeah. I'm a pretty good sleeper, but I think what I'm noticing the most is just, I'm not lack of inflammation. I'm not feeling as the feeling it gets to the end of the day, like a long day, and you try to turn your neck and it's stiff and hurts.
Let me tell you,
I had that a lot lately, and I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, what is happening to me?
So when I've done Whole30 a couple times, which again, you've put this sugar guilt inside me that is, I hate you for it. I really do. I hate you for it. I everything I touch, I'm looking at the sugar content. I'm like, I shouldn't be eating this.
Well, to be fair, the last year, I've been feeling that from you. I've been feeling that from you.
Switched roles. I eat a lot of sugar now, I feel like, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the guilt I'm feeling from you. I don't know. I went so far on that side of it. I got to the point the summit last year, bro. I was eating deli meat. You saw me. I was eating nothing. Yeah. And I felt great, but you get to this point of absurdity where you feel like you're limiting yourself so much. And then I was trying to, and now the pendulum's kind of swung for me. But this is what I was going to say about how one thing that I always felt when I finally did get off sugar is I felt when I woke up in the morning, I was able to wake up.
Yeah.
When that was a big one for me. Whereas normally I'd feel groggy for a while and I would just it would take some time. But then once I really got up, it felt like I could wake up almost instantly. It was kind of a weird thought. Are you feeling any of that?
Yeah. Yeah. It seems easier to wake up in the morning. I feel less defeated. When my alarm goes off.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm only 2 weeks in, right? You did this for months and months on end, right? So
a couple months, yeah.
So
3 weeks. Give it another week. You should, by 3 weeks, you should really be feeling it, all the benefits. So, but it sounds like you're already feeling a lot of the benefits, which is awesome, dude.
Just
I'm
little
proud
things,
of you.
I'm not hurting. I'm not hurting as much. The last year or so, my body just been hurting, and I'm like, why am I hurting? And then I realize I'm pumping myself with garbage. 90% of my diet is bread and cheese, and I'm like, my eyeballs are about to pop out of my skull.
Oh man.
I went to a family dinner last night, and I got kind of shamed by my family for not eating my family's
family shame.
Yeah.
Family shame ritual.
And everyone in my family is lecturing me about what I should be doing, with my
what were they saying? What was the feedback there?
the feedback was basically like, you know, well, when you deprive yourself too much of things, it's not sustainable, I've found. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, but I see what you eat. It's always bad.
Yeah.
You never eat good that I see, So like, I get what you're saying, but like,
There's some truth to that. That's kind of what I was saying, right? But it's like when I completely withdrew from sugar, there was always like you're trying to find a happy medium, right? And I always felt like the first few months when I would start to eat some sugar again, I always felt like it was so much easier to manage.
yeah.
So, you know, not to say that you're going to be sugar free for the rest of your life,
No, probably not.
but I think it's still so beneficial. It's so beneficial. And yeah, it's like
Everyone has an
misery wants
opinion.
yeah, misery wants company too. It's like, come on, eat ice cream with me, Christian. You're the
Yeah.
worst.
So like my family will always go get Mexican food on our family dinners. That's like because my dad picks the place. He's the only one that picks the
That's
place, and
right.
so it's just how it goes. So
The
we,
patriarch.
we go get Mexican food. That's kind of how it goes.
Okay.
Usually I'll get like enchiladas full of cheese, like the tortilla and everything, the
Yeah.
sauce like
Oh
full
yeah.
of like ground beef or something like that. And so
What'd you get?
this time I got a salad.
Okay.
So it came with, of course, lettuce, spinach, avocado, grilled
Yeah.
shrimp,
That sounds
um,
great.
and tomatoes.
I'm in.
And then they had ground up tortilla uh,
Oh,
chips on the top.
chips.
So I
Yep.
picked
Yep.
those off, and that's what really got my family after me.
Ah, yeah.
They were like roasting me for picking them off. They're like you're being a little ridiculous. If you're being a little extreme, and I'm like, I don't want them. I don't want the tortilla.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. I think anyone who goes through any type of diet change, again, I've been down that road. That was me last summit. I felt like a loser every time we ate anywhere. I'm just gonna have deli meat. And everyone's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, nothing. I'm just trying to eat healthy.
Yeah. No, I think for me, I just wasn't liking how I was feeling. I wasn't liking. I was gaining.
Yeah.
I've been gaining weight the last couple years. Like I went from like 160 at age 29 or 30 to like 185 is what it was like a month or two ago, and I'm like, "Oh," I just see where it's going. I see where it's on the path to, and I
Smart.
didn't
Yeah.
want it. So,
Well, this really fast, this kind of ties into something I was thinking about this morning, kind of
mhm.
reflective in the gym. And this is a marathon, you guys. This isn't a sprint.
Yeah.
Where you're this is the long haul. Some of you might be in and out of the industry. Some of you might be watching this or listening to this, and maybe you are only here for a year or two, which is too bad because we want as many agents to hang around for as long as possible. We need you guys. We need as many agents as possible. There's not nearly enough agents, in my opinion, to facilitate the needs of all the beneficiaries that exist right now. So, but I was thinking back, like, do you ever really sit and think like how far you've come? Like, have you ever really thought, like, you really go back, you really like, I know we talk about the old days, we talk about,
Mhm.
you know, like when you first started cold calling and when I was just thinking about like all those days where I would run like 8 to 10 appointments, you wouldn't get a single sale. You'd be questioning like your entire life's decisions.
Yeah.
You come home, you feel so defeated, and you'd have to wake up, drag yourself out of bed, and do it all over again. I don't know. It's wild to think about. It's been a journey, brother. It
Yeah.
really has.
I think about it often. I really do because I don't I think when I started, I always had big goals and big dreams and big ambitions, but I always probably in the back of my mind doubted myself to an
Same.
extent. And so I
Yeah.
like there's a part of me that
Self-doubt.
was like there's a part of me that was like I can do this, I can do anything, blah 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 blah. But then there was another part of me that was like I'll never get there. let's just see how far I
Sure.
can get kind of thing, which is, I
Yeah.
think everybody has that toxic voice in the
Absolutely.
back of your head. I think
Absolutely.
it's our inner insecurities and demons and everything like that. But,
Yes.
so I think about it often. I think about it pretty often. And I talk about it pretty often with my wife because she was there. She saw it all. She was there from the beginning.
Right.
So
Right.
she's been through the transformation of the business. And it is ridiculous to think about. Like, I think about in the early years of the agency for one was just me, didn't have a CRM. Everything was
Right.
paper, everything was
Nothing.
in file cabinets. If I
Right.
needed something, I'm like, going
Right.
through looking for
Right.
it. I'm taking notes on paper, sticky notes all over the place. I'm driving to houses. I'm driving all over the state of Utah for home appointments. I'm
Yep.
doing a lot of cold calling. I'm using a Magic Jack phone number that can't be traced, I think. I hope.
Magic Jack. Oh,
Like,
there's a throwback.
and there's no staff. I'm doing everything, right?
Yeah.
I'm working
Yeah.
on a book right now. We talked about it a little bit privately, but
Yeah.
and one thing I'm kind of trying to make this book about is like documenting a bit of the evolution
That
of the
journey.
agency,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
evolution of how things have kind of transpired
Yeah.
for me and what I've learned along the way and those kind of things. And I'm feeling really good about the book, but it's making me reflect even deeper about some of these things from the early days. So I compare that to today. It is so wildly different. It's so vastly different. Sometimes it's like crazy to really think about how much
Yeah.
has changed and how far the
That was
business
my
has
thoughts
come.
today, is
Like,
how wild it's been, the changes, the transformation, the journey.
we were looking through things the other day, you and I, about like things the company spent money on in Q1. And there's a part of the old Christian that sees like, I'm trying to think of an example. I think it was like 300 grand on payroll. There's a part of
Yeah.
the old Christian in there that goes, like he's still in there somewhere a little
Oh,
bit.
he's definitely yes, he is. I know he is.
um, like, so those things are, I'm like, holy shit, like there were years where I didn't make more than 300
Right.
grand in a year.
I didn't even make 300, let alone the idea of spending that
We
much money, right?
not
I
not
know that.
only not only
Yeah,
just spending that, but just spending that on
on a portion
payroll.
of one expense when we have all these other expenses. Let me tell you something while we're in this space, because I think it's interesting. And whoever's listening to this, there's other people who are, you know, 10, 20 years further down this road than we are. And then there's
Yeah.
other agents who are brand new and they're just starting their journey. So everyone's kind of, in their own path, their own road on their journey, their career in this industry. So I want to ask you a question though. So if you could sit down, because this was something I was kind of thinking about, is like I kept imagining if I could walk through a portal, sit down with myself. It's me and myself 12 years ago. What is one, if you could just share like one thing, one piece of advice, and not some, I'm not saying like some generic, something maybe specific to your journey,
Mhm.
your path, not some like generic, you know, agent advice, right? Like something
Yeah.
super specific that you would tell yourself if you could go back in time and be like, hey, like it's gonna be okay. This is something you should really do though. But what
Yeah.
would that be for you?
I went through a period in my early years of my career where I was always doubting if what I was doing was the right thing. Like, an example would be when I was 21, 22, 23, 24, those ages, every relationship, friendship I had at that point in time was people I knew when I was younger that were just goofing around and fucking around. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're going to
Yeah.
parties, they're drinking, they're
Yep.
smoking weed, they're doing all this
For
stuff.
sure.
Um, and they're not doing anything of substance with their life. But when you're that age, like, there's not, especially the way I was taught too. I was also taught by my dad, other agents are the enemy. And then I also had this perception that every agent was like 60, which was true. Like I never really like got around too many agents that were
You're an
anywhere close to my
enigma.
age.
You're an enigma. 32 years old.
So there, especially at like 21 to 24, right? Like,
yeah.
Like
Same.
so there was a lot of isolation at that point in time. And so, there's a lot of nights where I'm at the office and I'm cold calling. I'm making 200 cold calls over like the last 3 to 5 hours of my day, late into the night, 8, 8:30, 9, sometimes things like that. And it's a weird feeling. It's a weird feeling, like you wonder if it's like am I just wasting my life? Am I wasting my youth? Am I giving up these experiences that my friends are right now out there having?
Super valid thoughts.
And so,
for sure.
like, a lot of like confusing feelings at that point in time. But I never really fully doubted enough to waver from my path. I had a strong enough belief that I'm like, I will get somewhere positive. I will get somewhere positive. I don't know what it will be. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but I'll get somewhere positive. So I think if I had to tell myself something in those years, I mean, it would probably, if I'm being 100%, if it was supposed to be just something of encouragement, if that was the kind of the purpose of the message would be, it would be, all those people that are, kind of like, pulling their nose up at you and being like, huh, what a weirdo, what a loser.
Right.
They're all going to be,
why are you working?
They're all going to be losers, and they're not going to be in your life. And you're going somewhere, you're going somewhere special.
Absolutely.
So that would be like the encouragement. If I had to give myself any piece of advice, it would be, you're thinking too small. You're doing things harder than you have to do. Like, you need some technology. You need to hire people quicker. And you need to market. You need to learn marketing earlier.
Spend money
than you did, and spend money. So those would be the like the advices I would give myself, because I think I'd be a lot further along if I figured that stuff out earlier. But hindsight's always 20/20, right? Like, there's always something you could have done better. But that would be kind of the two things that I would probably tell myself. But that's what it looked like at that point in time. It was like, and there's really no proof of concept in, for yourself. Like, you're living in a crappy apartment with a girlfriend who's about to be your wife. And it's like, you can't afford much. It's like,
can't afford anything.
It's like,
does
this make sense? Like, am I really going somewhere positive? Because there's a lot of people that they'll tell themselves for decades at times. They're like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. And then they never make it.
Just lying to themselves. Yeah. No self-awareness. Yeah. I know we're already, I can't believe we're already 20 minutes in. See, when we're having fun conversations like this, I feel like time flies. But
absolutely.
Really fast, I'll share you kind of my thought. Because again, I'm going through this in my head today, and I've mentioned this on the show before, but I was told for a long time, there's no money in Medicare. And now it's like a joke. It's a joke whenever we're together, and you guys have seen, some of you have been around us when we've said this joke. Some of you have seen us post about it online. But I was told early on in my career, and the irony of this whole situation is that I left my corporate sales job that I was making really good money at because I wanted renewal income. And then I got into like the only line of insurance that doesn't have renewal income. I get into life insurance. I become the hamster. I literally left my corporate sales job because I was like, I don't want to be the hamster anymore. Every month my quota reset to 0. and I had to climb the ladder again. And it was just over and over and over. So I was like, I want to get into insurance and I want renewal income. And then I get into life insurance and there is essentially no renewal income. Obviously, depending on what type of life insurance, certain types of life insurance do offer some renewals. But in the grand scheme of things, you could take almost every line of insurance and line it up. And life insurance is probably at the bottom of the renewal income situation. So, and then I was told, and then as I'm figuring out life insurance and I'm having some success and I'm starting to look around the room now and I'm like, well, what else could I potentially do? Or what are some other opportunities, and still kind of thinking in my head, like, what can I do for renewal income? And then being told that there's no money in Medicare. And again, that's kind of the joke. I want a t-shirt, honestly, like there's no money in Medicare.
I'd like one as well. I'd wear it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I finally did the math a couple years into my career of selling life insurance. I really sat down and I did the math and I'm like, man, I could sell life insurance for 10 more years, or I could sell Medicare for 10 more years. And I could probably retire, and there was a point in time, there was this inflection point where I did the math. I knew what it could look like going both ways. And I was kind of fearful of changing direction because I was really comfortable with life insurance. I knew how to sell it. I could get in there. I could get the money, that I needed to be self-sustained, to, take care of all of my family's wants and needs. And we were living a comfortable life. And I kind of stayed in the life insurance space. So if I could go back in time and talk to myself and go through that portal 12, I'd be like, hey, you don't forget why you got into insurance to begin with. You got into this for the renewal income. Life insurance is great. You're selling, you're making money. This is great. But and don't be scared to follow, the path that you really wanted to begin with in the first place. But ultimately, I feel like I found it. I am making a fair amount of money on renewals. So,
yes.
I did make it eventually to that point, but it was a weird path.
It is funny. It is funny how something you're told by someone that really doesn't know,
yes,
early on in your career or early on in your life impacts you, and it kind of like is a domino effect for several years, right? Like
totally.
It's wild to think about. And that's why, like, taking advice from the right people, man, you cannot be more careful about who you.
Huge deal.
Like, I think I've told this story on the show before, but like I was told when I started as an agent, I had this goal. I was extremely ambitious, like I was a maniac when I started, probably even more than I am now.
That's scary to think
maybe
about.
Maybe I'm just a smarter maniac than I was back then. I don't know, but I was like, I was probably a less intelligent maniac, but I had this dream when I started 21, 22, that I want to make $1 million a year as a business by the time I was 30. It was my goal. And now you look back at it and it's like, we're so far above that, as a business.
Right.
But that was my big dream. And I remember talking to my dad, been in the business for 25 years at that point. And I told him, I was like, that's my goal. That's what I want to do. And he just kind of scoffed at me. And he was like, huh! He's like, I don't think anyone's doing that in our business. Wrong vehicle, boy. It was kind of like
crazy.
And he's like, and I was like, what do you mean? And so, like,
you're dreaming too big, kid.
And so I'm like, I remember feeling like a little shattered. I'm like, well, how much do you think someone can make? He's like, probably 400 or 500K tops. Those are the big boys, tops. And I was like, well, damn, so it got me doubting what I was doing. And I never walked away from insurance, but I had like distractions that popped in, right?
Sure.
Like I talked about before how I joined an MLM in like my second year. And I wasted like months on that. And I kept like going down these paths of like doing something on the side because I truly believed I'm like I was in the wrong vehicle. I couldn't get where I wanted to go in this vehicle. So that was that was horrible advice that impacted me for years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough.
It's
tough.
it is wild to kind of look back and think about that because you don't know what you don't know. So you're like, oh, this person
No.
I'm working with, they must know. They're the expert, right? They're the qualified individual that's going to guide me. But then like you probably don't think about this at the time. Like to you at that beginning point, what they're doing and what they're making is probably like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But looking
Right.
back on it now, it's like it wasn't hardly anything compared to
Yeah, I
what's
mean,
possible.
it's a very similar, like, between our stories, like, there is this very similar vein of self-doubt. Like, if we just didn't have that self-doubt, we already kind of knew the path we wanted to be on. And if
Mhm.
we had just not had that self-doubt, or not necessarily, because again, similar thing where it's like, someone telling us something that's not entirely true or a little slanted from their point of view. And it's like, if we had just, from day one followed our gut beliefs, we'd probably be even further ahead than we are right now. You
Yeah.
know,
I
it's
mean,
crazy.
don't get me wrong, right? Our combined company now is further along than 99% of agencies will ever get or insurance-based
True.
companies will ever get.
Yeah.
I mean, but it is crazy to think about. It is because you just see the potential of what could have been, but at the same time, it's probably one of those things where it's like, if you didn't go through that, would you be who you are today? Would you be as knowledgeable and skilled at what you
Right.
do as you are today? It's
Right.
probably all necessary. Probably all has to happen.
I think so. Yeah. I especially like the journey that took place for me on the marketing side. Like, I think I had to go down the road that I went, because ultimately that's, and that's the inception of Lead Heroes, was finally starting to really look into the Medicare side, and starting to get into the Medicare side of the business is really when the marketing really took off for me. So yeah, I mean, it's tough to say that, like, I should have never done this, or I went down the wrong path. Like,
Mhm.
but it's very interesting to reflect on it. And that was something I was thinking about this morning, but I didn't want to derail the entire episode, you
No,
guys. So
no,
we'll
that was
try
that was
to,
that was great.
yeah,
I think that
I
was a
enjoyed
great
that.
conversation.
Yeah.
All right, before we jump into the main topic, let's talk about this episode's sponsor. Glenn, tell the people who's the sponsor of 92, episode 92.
Episode 92 is brought to you by the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit. We are just below 60 days, in less than 2 months now.
Wow.
Over 300 agents, potentially up to 400 agents, will be getting together in Salt Lake City to network, share information, collaborate, listen to an incredible speaker lineup featuring industry titans like Craig Ritter, Brandon Clay,
Yes.
Olivia Richardson, Christian and myself, and many more speak from stage. And it's something, this will be our fourth annual event that we put on, and it's going to be something you do not want to miss. So right now, you can get to Salt Lake City and get in the door for only $350. Tickets are 30% off until the end of the month. That's coming up real fast. We have just about 5 or 6 days left of this ticket discount. So if you have not already purchased your ticket or reserved your room at the Hilton in Salt Lake, do it now. Do not wait. I will make sure the link is in the comments below this live stream. If you are listening to this on an audio platform, head over to sevenfigure.com. I won't spell out the entire URL because the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit.com is much longer. But if you go to sevenfigure.com, sevenfigure.com, you can go to the events tab, and you can also purchase a ticket for the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit right there through sevenfigure.com. And we are excited to see you there. We've got a bunch of great plans already in the works. We just had a big meeting yesterday about it. So don't wait. Get your ticket today. Head over to sevenfigure.com.
Real quickly before we move away from that, I wanted to say, so yesterday I took a call from someone that called into the office asking questions about the summit, which normally that would never end up with me on the phone. um, and someone called in, was talking to our newest employee, and she came back to ask me some questions. She's like, "What would you like me to say?" I'm like, "Do you want me just to take it?" Like I had a moment, which normally I would never do. Normally I wouldn't have time to do.
She's like, what is the summit?
So I get on the call and, some real valid questions and concerns that probably a lot of you are wondering, like the main question was, is this really just a glorified recruiting event? I don't, I don't want to change my FMO. I'm happy where I am, but I could use some genuine, solid advice on how to grow better, and how to scale at a more effective rate. And that's exactly what this event is. It's hard to really know and tell because there's so many events that are really disguised, and they end up really just being pitch fest, recruiting events, anything like that. And that's not what the summit is. So, it is hierarchy and FMO agnostic. We don't allow the speakers to pitch from the stage. It is all about providing value to you, as in the audience in any way, shape, or form. We try to balance the speaking lineup with people of different areas of expertise. So I don't think you'll be disappointed by making the investment of time and some money to come out and be at the summit this year. So June 22nd,
great point,
24th. This episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by my mini course, How to Find and Buy Books of Businesses. Guys, in 2024, Glenn and I, in our combined company, purchased and acquired through acquisition 900 clients. And over the years, we've purchased thousands of clients to grow our agency internally. And we've learned a thing or two over the years, right? There's certain things you need to look out for. You need to know how to value a book of business. You need to know how to transfer everything, what the expectations are in terms of the timeline. And you need to know how to put a deal together and structure it to protect yourself while still at the same time doing good business with people. Guys, this mini course is around 10 videos long. It's a quick and easy thing to get through. And it's a great way for you to grow your book of business in 2025. Whether you're finding an agent that is maybe been in the business for decades and they want to retire, and then maybe they don't have any kids to take over their business. Maybe you're looking at a situation with an agent that just hasn't been able to make it in the business and they're just looking to go off and try other things. Buying books of businesses can be a great way to quickly and rapidly grow your business fast. And we've unveiled all of the little tools and tricks that you need to know in this training. It's a one-time purchase for only $197. For that price, we're practically giving it away. Make sure to check it out now. Now back to the show.
And by the way, I'll add too, being that this is the fourth time doing this event, if this was just a big recruiting fest, you would see the internet littered with those comments. You would see those comments, which we've seen at other events over the years, and I've never once seen that comment because it's never happened. There's never been a push on stage or even some sort of like concerted effort in the audience at the seven-figure Medicare agent summit where, it's just a big scheme to try to get people's contracts. So that's definitely not happening.
Yep. I mean, we've had plenty of FMOs over the years that sponsor, that attend. We allow them to speak on stage that have really nothing to do with us. We don't work with them. And that's because we care more about the value to the audience than we care about getting your contracts. We'll take your contracts. Don't get me wrong. But the summit is not the type place that we're going to try to do it.
Right. Great point.
Okay, let's pivot into main topic today. So yesterday we started down this road of, preparing for AEP. We talked a lot about timelines. So if you guys didn't catch episode 1 of this, it's episode 91. Highly recommend you go listen to that as well. But we talked about timelines, like when should you be doing things? When should you be preparing? We talked a lot about marketing, like how to put together a marketing budget, all of that stuff. But one thing we didn't really get into a lot is, we kind of laid out like the big 3, I would say, of AEP prep. And that's marketing, making sure you have enough lead flow, new client acquisition strategies, client retention, and then how to balance those two, because the vast majority of agents, I feel like if they're spending a lot of time and effort in on one, they cannot do the other, which is malarkey. It's a limiting belief. So let's start talking about a little bit about client retention, because it is very important, right? Like AEP is a time where you can lose a lot of your business if you're not careful, and if they don't feel like you're valuable to them, or they're just not happy with your service. So I'll start off by saying one thing that does help with client retention is being awesome at your service all year round. I will say that. If they've gone through the year feeling like your service is really subpar, they're kind of waiting for the chance to leave you, some people.
Yeah.
So I think that cannot be overstated. But then when it comes to retention during AEP, I think if you really want to simplify it, it comes down to how can I do enough touch points, and how can I do it as easily as possible on me and my staff. From 2000, historically, we've always had around a 95% retention rate in our company year over year. Last year, we had a company high of ever that I believe at 97.5% retention rate, which is, I don't know if anybody has that number. I've never heard of such a number so high.
It sounds fake.
I was kind of like, what?
Sounds like a lie.
When I first saw that number. It's a crazy number. I think it just speaks to our agency and what we have in place, but also our team members. Our team members do a fantastic job.
Super strong team.
They're just killing it every day. But we've invested a lot of money.
Yeah.
We've invested a ton of money into the systems and the people to make sure that that's in place. But, some of you wonder how we do things. I'll just kind of lay out how we do it, how our typical AEP strategy. I've talked about it before too. It's no secret. Everybody wants to find a way, some secret golden way. I've given you the way. You guys, some of you just don't listen, and then you lose less. You lose more clients than we do.
That's true, though. He really, I will say, being someone that's been on the outside and now on the inside of the agency, I can tell you guys firsthand that I've seen he's shared in the group, in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. He has shared exactly the strategy that he has designed and built for retention for AEP, essentially verbatim. There's really nothing I would say that's being hidden behind closed doors at this point. He's been pretty much 100% transparent, which is crazy, but also true.
It's been developed over the course of a decade. Like, we have tried everything. So here's some things we don't do that some of you might feel like you have to do, and I'll explain why we don't do it. We've tried them before, by the way. We do not do group meetings with clients. We don't do it. Like, some of you will do, like, you'll rent out space, or you'll do this big event, and do this presentation for like 100 of your clients at a time. We don't do that. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'll tell you why we don't do it. We have too many clients, for one. Like, that would be such a huge time investment of the planning and doing them.
Summit part 2.
And number 2, we don't have to do it. We have an easier way. Like, we just do. And it hasn't hurt us one bit by not doing that for years now. The second thing we don't do is we do not send out. Some of you are sending out emails and mailers to your clients every year, telling them, you're instructing them, send me your updated drug list and I'll run a drug comparison for you. So let's say you have 10 clients, hypothetically. And let's say 5 of them need their drug plan compared. The other 5 are fine. The other 5 are taking like lisinopril and levothyroxine, and they're good. And they're on a WellCare $0 premium drug plan. Like, there's nothing to do, right?
Right.
But by you sending out that communication, you're telling them, we have to do this. So they're going to comply. So now you have to do all 10 of them, or 9 out of 10 that respond to you. So you're increasing your work. You see what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
So This is what we do. We send out a letter, usually around August, telling them what to expect. I post it in the group every year. You can find every year's version in the group. We send a MedSup letter and an MA letter. We also email out that letter to all the clients we have email addresses for. And the MA letter basically says, open enrollment's coming. We carry every Medicare Advantage plan in your state. If we do, like we send that to our Utah clients. We don't send that to clients in every state.
Right.
One of our team members is going to be calling you first week of October, and we'll go over your plan changes. And if you need to meet with an agent to have your plan reviewed and changed, we will then facilitate that. But you're going to see a lot of stuff. You're going to see a lot of propaganda. People might even start calling you. Ignore it all. We got you covered, more or less. The MedSup letter says your MedSup's not changing. It's the same plan. Your drug plan might be changing. If we feel like you need to get on a different one, we will let you know. But if you want to have your plan compared, reach out to us. We can do that as well. Then we create, we get all the ANOCs we can in September of the plans where we have lots of clients. Maybe we have 100 clients on one plan, 500 clients on one plan, 600 clients on one plan, 1,000 clients on one plan. We'll get the ANOCs for all the plans we can. We will create a script for what is changing for our staff to go over when they call. We'll also create emails and videos. Emails going over bullet points of what's changing, the highlights, and then link to a private video that's on YouTube that only they can see with the link that shares the screen, goes through the ANOC, and covers it. It's about 15 to 20 minutes usually each video. And then we schedule those to be emailed out early in the morning on October 1st. That wipes out a lot of people right there because they go through the email, they watch the video, and they're like, I feel like I'm good on my plan. And they'll email back. They'll be like, thank you for this information. I'm good for another year. Mark me down as good. So that saves us from having to call. And then first week of October, we will call all our clients. We used to call 3 times. We used to call 3 times until we've reached everybody if we couldn't get a hold of someone. Nowadays, we call 2. So last AEP was the first time we only called twice because there's so many people now. We have thousands and thousands of internal clients.
Yeah.
We're only calling the MA people, and we're calling MedSup people if their PDP is going to hell. Let's say their PDP is tripling in price. We'll call those people. The rest are by request. And then the MA people, if their plan is not changing much or their plan's still good, the idea of the script is to tell them what's changing, go through it. It's a 5-minute to 10-minute phone call. And then our call to action is if you're still happy with your plan, we still feel like it's a strong one for next year. The plans that are going to hell are placed in a different category, and the intention is to schedule an appointment with an agent to have them revisit their plan. And we're pretty much done 85%, I'd say, with existing clients by the end of October. Like we're done.
I think it was even sooner this last AEP, and that's the thing. So I think a lot of this happens with the right preparation, you guys. Which again, the main topic is how do you prepare. Last AEP was interesting because there was so much fear among agents. On the marketing side, with Lead Heroes, when I'm talking to people who've ordered from us every year or every AEP, and going through with them like, hey, what's your plan? Trying to figure out what their marketing plan is, what their budget looks like. There were so many agents who basically just said, I don't even want to take on new clients this AEP. I'm not even going to try to sell new applications. I'm just going to spend my whole AEP digging a moat around my agency, essentially, is kind of how I viewed it. Like they're just defending the castle, and they were so scared of this idea of, trying to bring on any new clients, because if there's a hole in the ship, they're going to lose all of their existing book. And there's some variance, obviously regionally, that some of you had a much bigger turnover potentially with your book than other parts of the country. So like, obviously This isn't like a blanket for everybody, but I do think that some of you made this decision based on fear and probably also a lack of preparation, like Christian just outlined there. And again, you can find some of the exact letters that we use at Everything Senior Insurance. You can literally find that here in the group if you search for it. But by doing that preparation and by not being fearful, that now allows for the majority of AEP to be able to be focused on writing new applications. And regardless of how many changes are going on during AEP, that needs to be, where the majority of your time is being spent, in my opinion. Like, yes, retention is important. Yes, you don't want to, have an AEP where you're all of a sudden you lost 20% of your book or something horrific like that. Obviously, yes, I'm totally in favor of that. But the flip side of it is to, basically set new business aside during the most valuable time of the year where you can write the most business possible during this annual enrollment period, essentially just out of fear of losing your book. It's just not the right strategy, you guys. You gotta have a better mindset.
I have two things I want to add to, like, people. One thing I always get asked from agents is like, well, what about your clients that take 20 meds? You're just telling them to stay without running their drug comparison. We have a short list of clients that fit that description, where we know that they, their drug costs are enormous every year. They take 25 meds, and we know we have to run a comp for them every year. We have a short list of those people, so we handle them a little differently. We also have virtual assistants doing all our drug comps and virtual assistants doing all our doctor checks. So our agents and our internal admin staff are spending almost no time doing those things. A lot of you are up into the late.
That's not compliant. You can't do that.
Compliance police. So
how could you?
Our virtual assistants are doing a lot of the prep work when there are things that we need to revisit with someone or new clients or appointments or anything like that. So that's an efficiency thing.
Saving time.
We're not spending internally. The virtual assistants do it, but outside of that, the rest of the staff aren't spending much, if any, time on that. The other thing I'd say is, I get a lot of questions over the years about the calling, the outbound calls, right? That's a lot of work. You can't execute on the way we do it if you don't have staff.
Yeah.
You can't do it. If you have maybe 100 clients in your book, you can do it yourself. You can do it in like a day or two.
Yep.
So it just depends on your situation. But if you're one of those people that you have, let's say 1,500 clients and you've never been willing to hire anyone, our process probably isn't going to work for you.
Lots of those out there too.
And I'll talk to people that they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle AEP. I'm overwhelmed. And it comes down to, you indeed probably have reached a ceiling of what your business is capable of, because you won't let it grow. You won't let it grow. It's an organism, it needs to grow. And so you can't do our system, our model, without staff. It doesn't work. Because if there's only one of you, there's only so much you can do. But I would argue, if you're in that situation, I hate to say this, but you're foolish to keep it small like that, to not let it grow. It's 100%. Not smart. You could be growing. You're the reason why it won't. You're preventing your business from growing.
Yes. You are bottlenecking your own business, your own agency. You are choosing not to help more seniors because it's really all fear-based in my mind. I think some of you just get so bought into this fear that every agent's coming to steal your book. And not to say that they won't, right? Again, that's why retention is important. If you actively didn't do any prep work, if you actively didn't contact any of your book of business, you will probably lose a chunk. But it's, how can you strategically do both? How can you better set yourself up? Another part of the conversation yesterday, I'm not sure if you have a couple other things you want to get into here, but one thing I wanted to kind of mention was the carrier piece of this, because every carrier is a little different. Big thing with last year, obviously, was the non-commissionable plans. is there something that maybe you could speak to in regards to carrier prep, making sure that maybe certain carriers or I think the interesting part, again, kind of seeing this firsthand last year, every carrier kind of releases on their own time frame, right?
Mhm.
So I think that can almost be a blessing versus if they all dumped on the same day, now you'd be sifting through all this information at once. Whereas it's like, Humana this week, Aetna next week, or 2 weeks from now, UHC, like however the release of the new plans goes. So, I think there might be something to that maybe you could speak to with prep work too. But that was just something I was thinking of that we didn't get to talk about yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's a great point because, one thing we talked about yesterday is like you can't fully have your preparation done until you know
Yes.
what the carriers are going to do, your strategy, that kind
Right.
of thing. So you have to be willing to make adjustments and pivot and ready to do that and able to do that. I think carriers, so usually the timeline works something like this. New AHIP will come out the end of June. Then carrier certifications will start coming out end of June to beginning of July. There's some that might not come out till August because they're freaking bananas weird. Um, and you sometimes can get a glimpse in what things might look like for next year, just a slight glimpse, but you really don't see too much until you see the carrier first looks for next year. Their first looks is almost like a preview of what they think their plans are going to look like, but they're not
Right.
official, but they're usually pretty close. They're not like CMS approved or anything, but it gives you a direction. And so you'll get those a lot of times. You can start seeing some of them in July and some of them probably in August. And it's important to just really be engaged and paying attention. This is why growing your business and working in your business all year long is really important. So, I mean, the reason why some of you October 1st are like trying to scramble to make adjustments on what's happening in your market is because you've been asleep at the wheel. You've been in what I call agent hibernation, basically June, July, August, September, when all this information's been available, like, and you have no one to blame but yourself.
Right.
Because information
That's
is
a great
out
point.
there. It is out
Yeah.
there. It's being put out. The carriers are putting it out there. Your FMO's putting it out there. Like we send it out to our agents.
Yep.
And so,
We
I
post
think
about it in the group. We share that with the entire community. Right here on the podcast or in the group. The information's available a lot of times. The second stuff drops, somebody's sharing it somewhere, and then it's
exactly.
everywhere.
It's almost
Yeah.
like impossible to miss if you're even
Mhm.
trying even a tiny bit to pay
Yeah,
attention.
right.
Um,
Right.
One thing we didn't get a chance to get into too much is how to balance these things, and maybe we can kind of weave these into final thoughts a little bit, but because I do think that's an important thing too. How do you balance? Well, I think you've talked about it a lot, and I think it's very true. Eliminate, automate, delegate. That's the only way.
Yeah.
So eliminate some things I said earlier is like we don't drive to
Client
houses.
events. Right.
If we do in person, they're coming into the office, everything else is over the phone. So we're not doing client appreciation events. We're eliminating things that are inefficient, right? Like we've eliminated things like that. We eliminate sending out communications to our clients, telling them all to send us drug lists and we're going to run drug comps for every single one of them. We've eliminated that. It's not good. It's inefficient. We've tried it before.
Right. Right.
Um, so many of you do this now. I can see why you're up to your eyeballs because,
Right.
Miss Betty, that takes levothyroxine and lisinopril, you're instructing her that you need to do a drug comp for her. No, you don't. You don't. Unless her drug plan is tripling in price or something crazy like that's going on, you don't need to run a drug comp for Miss Betty. But
Yeah.
you're basically telling her you have to in your communication. No wonder your
Yep.
AEPs are hell.
Right.
Like
Yep.
she's on a $0 premium WellCare plan, covers her 2 meds at zero. It's not changing much for next year, hypothetically. This is what we saw last year. Leave it
Yep.
alone.
Yep.
Like, and then also, Some of you will come back and be like, but WellCare, no commission. I got to rewrite it for that. For us, we just cut our losses and let it go.
Yeah, leave it be. Yeah.
If an opportunity presented itself where someone called in and wanted us to run a drug comp, we try to do what we could. But we weren't actively trying to churn all those people because it just wasn't profitable.
Yeah, it's
not talking about a drug plan.
Revenue. Yeah.
So eliminate, right? Automate. We're automating our letters. Like, we're not manually stuffing our letters or anything like that. We're sending mass emails.
Handwriting.
Yeah.
Handwrite everything.
We're sending mass communications, mass emails, but on our mail, we're paying a third party, a local mail house is what we usually do. They stuff the envelopes, they print everything. We just tell them what we want it to look like and what we want it to say, and they handle it all, and we pay them. Like,
yep.
Automate. And then delegate. We have a large staff that helps us with all of this stuff, from our virtual assistants to our internal admin staff to our internal agents. It's a team effort. And that's how we do this. That's how we execute on it. So that's how you balance these things. That's how you do them together. That's how you get new business too.
Yeah, again, seeing this firsthand, you guys, this last AEP, I think it was that kind of concerted effort of all these different things happening. I remember thinking like, wow, we already really talked to all of our clients. We already really communicated with all of our clients. Like, it really was that, it seemed that easy. Not that it actually was that easy, but it was just the series of prep, the preparation. And it's really no different. We talk about the NBA, we talk about sports on this podcast all the time, but it's no different than when you do see Kawhi Leonard, hit that step back three, and it was like nothing to him, because it is the amount of prep that goes into seeing that shot. Steph Curry, any incredible athlete, I've listened to Tom Brady talk about his prep. He used to. It was really interesting. I'm not a Tom Brady fan either. I want to say that up front before I say it, but I still regret saying that he was the GOAT of the NFL on this podcast at one point. I wish I could edit that out, but it was incredible to hear him talk about his prep before games, where he would be so prepared for these other NFL defenses that he was going up against, that the second he got to the line of scrimmage, he knew exactly what defense they were in. Oh, they're showing cover 2, but it looks like they're going to actually drop 8. I'm going to audible into a run. Or, oh, you know what? This is actually a blitz. I'm going to audible into a screen pass. And not that he was perfect every time, but again, that's, you see him play and you would think, wow, Tom Brady is incredible. Like, he's just so good. But it's honestly the preparation. The preparation is what made him so good. And if you listen to him talk, you would know. You'd be like, oh, wow. And that's how it is with probably, some people are truly gifted and talented at what they do, whether that's sports or business, sales, like whatever it is. Some people are just genuinely talented. They don't have to try very hard, and they do get to that next step, that next level. But the reality is 95% of us get to that next level and accomplish big things because of the preparation. And AEP is no difference. There's no difference in my mind. Is the better you prepare, the more you can get done, the more retention you'll have, the higher retention you'll have, the more apps you can write, the more new clients you can take on, the bigger your agency can grow, the more seniors you can help. And a lot of that stems back to preparation, just like what we've been discussing yesterday and today. So I think this was a great topic. I think there's a lot of gold between these two for agents looking for help for AEP.
I'll kind of sacrifice my final thoughts, I guess, because there is a question I think is a good one.
Into the volcano.
Toss
your final thoughts in the
volcano. No, it's a good question though, from the great Becky Reel. Curious how your virtual assistants communicate back to you after they run the drug comp. So there's kind of two scenarios. Number one, let's say there's an appointment scheduled for a client on one of the agent's calendars. the virtual assistant will run the drug comp, and they know it needs to be ran and put into our CRM under the client's file before the appointment. Usually the day before the appointment is kind of our goal. And so the agent just knows to look and it will be there from the virtual assistant. Now, if it's someone that we have to call back and there's not an appointment, they'll run the comp, they'll put it in the under the client's file in the CRM, and then they will send an email to the agent or the admin that's working on it internally and say, hey, so-and-so's drug comp is done. We're ready to get back to them on that. So usually it's as simple as that.
What's so crazy? So I always have my phone up with the stream so I can see the comments. and I was watching the stream. It only showed 2 comments this whole time. I'm like, wow, nobody's here today. And then you mentioned someone commented, and I refreshed, and there's all these comments. You guys are here. I didn't know. That's so funny. Facebook is so glitchy sometimes. Yeah, that's a great point, though.
Yeah,
great question.
Good question. Glenn, final thoughts on episode 92.
My final thoughts, you guys, I really think that, part of this conversation, we talked a lot of, and I'm a huge fan of actionable advice, something tangible, a strategy, a system. I think Christian and I both gave you guys a lot of actionable advice, tangible things you can take away and use to prepare for AEP this year. But for my final thoughts, I would say the other part of this is mindset. And a lot of you suffer from this fear-based mindset. You're so scared of losing your existing clients that you don't even consider growing your agency. And we saw that on a big scale this last AEP, and I'm sure we'll probably see some more of you this AEP, unfortunately, who choose to go that route again. And I challenge you, if you are scared, if you're fearful, I challenge you to really push past that and maybe try to change your mindset. Reach out to your upline, reach out to peers in the industry, post a comment here in 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. Try to get through that fear, because on the other side of that is, again, and it's not even just about the monetary gain to you personally as an agent, you're helping the entire industry. The more seniors you can help, because again, like I said at the start of this episode, there's not enough good agents out there who are genuinely helping seniors. We need more of us. We need more people actually helping beneficiaries. So, this isn't just about that monetary compensation. Obviously that's a great reward too, but you got to push through that fear. You got to figure it out. So get some help if you need it. Get some help. We want to see you grow.
I love it.
Those are my final thoughts.
Good episode. Good 2-part episodes on this topic. Appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end. For those of you that did, whether it be live or on a recording. If you're watching on the live stream, whether it be live or on the replay, comment on it for the chance to be entered into Freebie Friday. Make sure to
Summit tickets. We're giving away Summit tickets tomorrow,
and we're giving away a lot of Summit tickets, so you have a great chance to win.
Yes.
If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We're getting close to 100 subscribers on the podcast YouTube channel. It's only been around about a month. It will be the best way to watch the full-length video episodes historically of the show, as Facebook will delete them after 90 days.
Boo, Facebook.
Boo,
Mark.
Facebook.
Boo, Mark Zuckerberg.
Facebook can't afford the storage.
There's tariffs on storage now.
If you're listening on an audio-only platform such as Spotify, such as Apple Podcasts, make sure to subscribe and make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd certainly appreciate the love. And we'll see you guys on the next one of the 7 Figures of Bust podcast. Appreciate you guys, and here's to your massive success.